Now, in terms of gear, we have a lot to talk about. So, I mean, we can just go through all the T6 gear, right? So, let's start with mech soldiers and encounters, right? For mechs and soldiers, we can just knock out already on the maze stuff. For the most part, when you're going DPS, it's probably going to be anti-ground damage, but the substats probably going to be anti-defender damage for the reason that they're pretty much the tankiest things. Strikers are pretty relatively easy to kill, and honestly, defenders just need to die ASAP. They provide the most protection and whatnot, so that's usually what you would run if you're going damage. Obviously, if you're running CDR and it's a character that really needs that CDR, then it's valid to go skill haste. Otherwise, for the most part, I think it's fine to run pretty much just skill haste and ground or anti-defender damage for soldiers and mechs. Now, when it comes to like maze armors and stuff, it's still pretty much crit damage res or anti-ranger res, for the most part, because that's usually you're equipping your tanks or healthier units with that. But for people like soldiers, I would definitely say that it's a little bit more complicated. In the extent that obviously there are some CDR characters, you'll have like one CDR set, but it won't include maze armor, right? If you looked at my gear guide, you'll know what it means. Well, it's a CDR set, obviously. It's probably a good CDR soldier or a soldier with an ultimate. So I definitely think that skill haste is the way for CDR again. But other than that, definitely I would go for anti-defender damage on the weapons and scopes and stuff for extra damage. And for the armor, obviously ground damage res or whatever, because your attack speed gears on maze probably doesn't have armor, because all of the armor went to HP for Asmon's, Overflow, Jane Doe, and Minwoo. So crit damage res is probably your play for the strikers, and for the weapons, maze or hummingbird HP or attack speed is also crit damage res, or if you want anti-ranger res for PvP for like overflow or something. But yeah, something like that. This would be probably for overflow. Anti-ranger damage res would be for overflow, and then I can get crit damage res on his weapon or something like that. Other than that though, I definitely would say that with the attack speed suits, it pretty much be the same thing. Crit damage res, you're going tanky on them, because it's very useful in terms of keeping your strikers and defenders alive. Now, as you can see right here with the scopes and the exosuits, you can see that majority of it is HP for the two tanks that I mentioned, but also 4 of them are attack speed for Jane Doe and for Asmon's. One of them is anti-ground damage, or 2 of them really, for the DPS Jane Doe. And then for the scopes, it would be ground damage res, so the Asmon's can tank a little bit more. This is on the attack speed ones right here. If you need an attack speed ground damage res option, that's there. Other than that, I think I covered pretty much everything in terms of soldier gear. After that, going on to counter cases, or not counter cases, counter gear. Obviously, in general, any gear that's SC or Dante, you know, anti-ground damage is probably the best option, or if it's CDR, then skill haste would be the best option. It's pretty obvious in terms of that. If it's HP, ground damage res is the best option, right? Same thing with anti-siege, all that stuff, right? Or if it's attack, anti-ground damage, all that good stuff. But when it comes to things like exclusives and stuff, like you'd probably want skill haste on your Mia weapon, which I hope you can get. No, you can't. That is a shame. Maybe you don't use this then. Attack speed, you could use attack speed if you want. Basically shoot your ult faster, right? But generally stuff like this, ground damage res, right? HP, all that good stuff, right? It's pretty simple for the most part. But when it comes to like the end game gear, right? So courageous gear and sincere gear, I would definitely recommend CDR skill haste, because it's just better on supports in general. it benefits them a lot in terms of just skill haste. So might as well just use that, right? Other than that, obviously, if you're going for tanky crowns, ground damage res is the way. CDR skill haste, obviously, and hummingbird hands, crit damage res is the best option, as well as the cases as well. Now the cases for CDR and attack speed, and crowns, and weapons. Honestly, the whole attack speed CDR set, just skill haste, just skill haste. It's just a lot of skill haste, right? But when it comes to defensive gear, obviously crit damage res is the best option. Obviously, you could run anti-ranger res on the weapon if you have a maze hands. It is possible to roll that. For defenders, that's recommended for PvP. But in general, for PvE, the more crit damage res you have, the less damage you will take. Because at a certain point, you will cap on defense or res in general. But crit damage res is its own thing, so that's what I recommend on for that. Otherwise, you can see my options for my characters right here. For the most part, it's pretty much just attack speed, right? And skill haste. Obviously, for exclusives, it's different, but main ones I guess I would recommend for Xiaolin is anti-ground damage, because the more ground damage you have, the more your crit will be amplified. That's the TLDR version. And I think that's pretty simple in terms of subsetting overall. It's pretty easy to guess, honestly. But in terms of Shadowhall, I will bring up some pictures here. As you can see, for Shadowhall, there are a few different things. Obviously, option 1 is pretty much anti-class damage, and you can pretty much tune this to a specific danger close boss or in PvP specific enemy. Other than that, you have your option 2. Now, option 2, you don't have any skill haste for what's it called? You don't have any skill haste for the weapon. So Spectral Spirit is kind of like a iffy situation, right? But ground damage is obviously still there. But instead of skill haste, attack speed is there instead of... Why am I saying skill haste over and over? Pretty much the TLDR is that you don't really get as much skill haste. You get like a maximum of a 48% CDR if you run the Spectral Spirit set with the skill haste subs for everything else. And it's pretty underwhelming. I think it's probably better to go Spectral Bullet or something like that, or Spectral Blaze, right? So pretty much, generally, it's pretty much just ground damage plus anti-class damage, which is basically maze gear. You get the same amount or the same effect. So Spectral gear is basically just like the soldier and mech stuff I was talking about earlier. Anti-defender, anti-ground. It's pretty much the same thing. It totals up to the same substats. That's pretty much Spectral gear. It's endgame gear that's craftable. But in terms of skill haste, CDR is still better. So in terms of maze gear selection or optimization, CDR should probably be your main focus. Maybe one set of attack speed, but it's not that important. In general though, that's pretty much it, I think. Just run ground damage and anti whatever. That's the beauty of it. You get ground damage as the subset, or option 1, choose. You need a gear for danger close, mod B, or nervier? Ranger damage. Striker damage? Go ahead. Defender damage? Go ahead. That is Spectral Hall gear, pretty much, to the simplest form. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. I hope this kind of cleared some stuff up. It's a little bit short, but obviously I went through all the sets in the other video. And if you didn't see it, you should check it out. Thank you guys for watching though, and I will see you guys in the next video or stream. I'm doing an ALSY stream pools tomorrow for viewers, so make sure you tune in. Goodbye.